I probably shouldn't have grabbed that third drink from the red cup. But here I was, standing in the middle of Kara's birthday bash, where the lights were so dim you could barely recognize faces and the music pounded so loud that thinking became impossible. I needed the distraction desperately, because exactly 3 tables away, my ex-boyfriend Dylan stood with his arm wrapped around Bridget, his new soulmate. They were laughing, holding hands, doing all the things we never managed to do together. I checked my phone for the timestamp on our last conversation. 2 months. It had only been 2 months since our breakup. I'm completely fine, I muttered to myself, even though my chest felt like someone had wrapped it in steel bands. Absolutely fine. That's when Dylan spotted me. His smile widened into that insufferably fake sympathetic expression I'd come to hate. He actually had the audacity to wave at me like we were old friends catching up. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Then someone's hand landed on my shoulder. "You all right?" The voice was deep, smooth as expensive whiskey. I turned around and wow. A complete stranger stood there, tall with sharp cheekbones that could cut glass, dark wavy hair styled in that perfectly messy way that probably took half an hour to achieve, and eyes that shifted between light brown and gold depending on how the dim lights hit them. Designer watch. Cologne that probably cost more than my rent. This guy clearly existed in a tax bracket I'd never even visited. "Do I look all right?" I shot back sarcastically. He smirked, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Honestly, you look like you're 2 seconds away from either bursting into tears or punching someone straight in the face." "Fair assessment, unfortunately. There's a third option," I blurted out, the liquid courage finally kicking in. "I need you to kiss me. Right now." His eyebrows shot up toward his hairline. "I'm sorry, what?" "My ex is watching us," I explained quickly, gesturing vaguely in Dylan's direction without actually looking at him. "I need him to believe I've completely moved on with my life. So just once. Quick kiss. Please? I'm actually begging here." The stranger glanced toward Dylan, then back at me, then toward Dylan again. "That guy? The one wearing the backwards baseball cap like he's still in college? That's him. He looks like he'd lose a physical fight to a vending machine," the stranger observed casually, his tone absolutely deadpan. Despite everything, I almost laughed. The situation was absurd enough without his commentary. "Are you going to help me or not?" He tilted his head, studying me like I was a particularly interesting puzzle he was trying to solve. "What exactly do I get out of this arrangement? Good karma? Universal brownie point? Not nearly good enough." But then he leaned closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "However, I'll do it anyway. You look genuinely desperate, and I can't resist a damsel in distress." Before I could decide whether that was insulting or charming, he slid his hand around my waist and pulled me toward him. Not rough, not gentle either, just confident, like he'd calculated every angle of this move beforehand. Like it was a chess strategy he'd been planning for hours, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd expected. Slow, deliberate, controlled. His lips were soft but firm, and he kissed me like he wasn't performing for an audience, like he was actually savoring the moment. My brain completely short-circuited. This was supposed to be fake, quick, meaningless, a performance for Dylan's benefit and nothing more. It felt like none of those things. When he finally pulled back, his eyes locked onto mine, and for just a second, maybe less, something passed between us. An electric charge, a recognition of something neither of us had anticipated or wanted to acknowledge. "That should definitely do the trick," he said quietly, his voice slightly rougher than before. I nodded breathlessly and forced myself to glance toward Dylan. He stood frozen, completely stunned, while Bridget looked utterly confused beside him. Mission accomplished, I supposed. "Thanks for that," I managed to say to the stranger, trying desperately to sound casual even though my heart was performing gymnastics in my chest. "I definitely owe you one now." "Yeah," he said, that smirk returning to his face. "You absolutely do." Then he disappeared into the crowd, leaving me standing there alone, confused, flustered, and unexpectedly craving more of whatever that had been. The following Monday arrived far too quickly. I was at my desk organizing quarterly reports when the announcement crackled through the office speakers. "Attention everyone, we're meeting our new CEO this morning." He starts immediately. Please gather in the main conference room in exactly 10 minutes. Our new CEO. The company had recently merged with a major tech firm, and our previous boss had decided to retire early. Everyone seemed nervous, whispering about potential layoffs and restructuring. Would this new guy clean house? Implement massive changes? Fire half the staff? When I walked into the conference room, Kira was already seated and immediately grabbed the chair next to her. I heard he's incredibly young, she whispered urgently. Like disturbingly young for someone running a company this size. Perfect, I muttered under my breath. Probably some soulless corporate robot programmed to maximize profits. The doors opened, and he walked in. Same dark wavy hair, same sharp jawline, same light brown gold eyes that had stared into mine just days ago. The stranger from Kara's party. He stood at the front of the room, radiating confidence, commanding everyone's attention without even trying. Good morning, everyone. My name is Francis Hale and I'm your new CEO. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Now let's get started. His gaze swept across the room in a quick professional scan, and then stopped on me. Just for a second, just long enough. His expression remained completely neutral, perfectly controlled, but I saw it. Recognition flickered in his eyes. The panic that rose in my chest was immediate and overwhelming. My life had just become impossibly, catastrophically complicated. I spent the rest of the meeting in a daze, barely registering anything being discussed. Strategic initiatives, quarterly projections, team restructuring. None of it penetrated the fog in my brain. All I could think about was that kiss. That moment. The way his hands had felt on my waist. The way he'd looked at me afterward. And now he was my boss. My CEO. The person who literally controlled my professional future. When the meeting finally ended, I practically sprinted back to my desk, keeping my head down and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Kira tried to catch up with me, asking questions I couldn't hear over the roaring in my ears, but I waved her off with some excuse about urgent deadlines. I had kissed my new CEO at a party to make my ex-boyfriend jealous. This was going to be a complete disaster. My survival strategy was embarrassingly simple. Avoid Francis Hale at all costs. Obviously, this plan was technically impossible considering we worked in the same building and he was literally my boss. But I remained determined to try. I kept my head down at my desk, stayed silent during meetings and made absolutely certain never to make eye contact with him under any circumstances. This brilliant strategy lasted exactly 2 days. Wednesday afternoon, my desk phone rang with an internal call. Francis's assistant was on the line. Mr. Hale needs to see you in his office immediately. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. Did he mention why? No. He just said it's urgent and can't wait. I reluctantly took the stairs up to the executive floor, where corner offices had floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor that screamed expensive taste. Francis's office was the largest, with a massive desk that probably cost more than my entire monthly salary. He was typing something on his laptop when I entered, but he didn't acknowledge my presence right away. The awkward silence stretched on. I cleared my throat nervously. Close the door behind you, Francis said without looking up from his screen. I did as instructed, then stood there awkwardly like a student called to the principal's office for unknown infractions. Finally, Francis lifted his gaze from the screen and looked at me. Really looked at me. His expression was completely unreadable. Have a seat. I sat down uncomfortably in the leather chair across from his desk. Listen, if this is about what happened at the party, your third quarter report, he interrupted smoothly, pushing a folder across the polished desk surface toward me. It's genuinely impressive. Detailed market analysis, accurate forecasting, professional presentation quality. Excellent work. I blinked in confusion. Was this actually a compliment? Oh. Thank you. Why are you still in a junior analyst position? Francis asked directly, leaning back in his chair. You're clearly capable of handling significantly more responsibility. I honestly don't know, I admitted, feeling somewhat defensive. I suppose nobody noticed my work before. Well, I noticed immediately. Francis stated firmly. I'm moving you to the senior strategy team. The transfer is effective immediately, starting tomorrow morning. My jaw nearly hit the floor. Wait. What? That's an enormous jump in responsibility. There it was. We were finally addressing the enormous elephant that had been suffocating the room. Is it favoritism? I asked carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. Absolutely not, Francis replied bluntly. Every promotion decision I make is based purely on merit and performance. I don't play favorites with staff members. He leaned forward, folding his hands on the desk. But let me be completely clear about something. What happened at that party, that stays strictly between us. Nobody else at this company needs to know about it. Ever. Completely agreed, I said quickly, feeling both relieved and strangely disappointed simultaneously. Good. Francis stood up, clearly signaling the meeting had concluded. Your new office is located on this floor. My assistant will show you where everything is. I stood as well, still processing everything. Mr. Hale. Francis works fine, he interrupted. When it's just the two of us talking privately. Something about the way he emphasized just the two of us sent butterflies swarming through my stomach. Right. Well, thank you genuinely for this opportunity. The following 2 weeks were absolutely intense. Working with the senior strategy team was a completely different experience. Faster pace, higher stakes projects, and direct access to Francis in meetings. We clashed regularly during presentation. He preferred aggressive timelines and bold moves. I advocated for realistic schedules and calculated risks. He was a natural risk taker. I was inherently cautious and methodical. You're being far too conservative with this approach, Francis commented after one presentation, once everyone else had left the conference room. This plan is good, certainly competent, but good isn't sufficient for what we need. We need bold vision. Bold visions bankrupt companies, I argued, crossing my arms defensively. Calculated risks? Absolutely. Reckless gambling with company resources? Absolutely not. Francis stared at me for a long moment. Then surprisingly he smiled. A genuine smile, not the polished professional mask he wore during meetings. You're not intimidated by me at all, are you? Should I be intimidated? I challenged, meeting his gaze directly. Most people are, he admitted, taking a step closer. Too close for a typical boss-employee interaction. But not you. You push back against my ideas. Challenge my assumptions. I actually respect that quality. My heart rate accelerated noticeably. Francis, relax, he said, stepping back and creating distance again. I'm not making any inappropriate moves here, just stating an observation. But the tension crackling between us felt like significantly more than mere observation. Friday evening, the company hosted an informal mixer, supposedly a team-building exercise. Bar setting, casual dress code, forced socializing. I deliberately planned to arrive late to avoid Francis, but when I finally walked in, he was already watching me from across the crowded room. He wore jeans and a black button-down shirt. Casual but still somehow intimidatingly perfect in every way. Kara immediately dragged me toward the bar for drinks, but I could feel Francis's gaze following my movements. And then Dylan, yes, my nightmare ex-Dylan, suddenly appeared at the mixer as someone's uninvited +1. I knew instantly this would end in disaster. Dylan spotted me and approached with that obnoxious grin, clearly already tipsy. Rayan, brother, it's been forever. Not nearly long enough, I muttered under my breath. Come on, don't be like that, Dylan said, throwing his arm heavily around my shoulders. We're cool, right? You've obviously moved on. I definitely saw you at Kara's party with some guy. Dylan, remove your arm. Who was that mystery man anyway? Dylan pressed obnoxiously, drunk and nosy as always. Your new boyfriend? Some kind of upgrade from dating me? Suddenly, a hand firmly removed Dylan's arm from my shoulders. Francis appeared beside me, his expression cold as ice. He asked you to let go, Francis said quietly. But his voice carried undeniable weight and authority. Dylan stumbled backward, confused and off balance. Who the hell are you? His boss, Francis stated simply. And you're clearly intoxicated. Leave now. Dylan looked between us, something calculating flickering in his drunk, messy brain. Wait a second. Are you the guy from Kara's party? That's him? He asked. Your ex? Unfortunately, yes. I admitted, embarrassed. I'm sorry. I know, I said, frustrated with everything. Maybe accepting the promotion was a mistake. Maybe I should request a department transfer. Absolutely not, Francis said firmly. You're not going anywhere. He stepped closer, his eyes intense and focused. But we need to be smart about this. Whatever this is, he gestured vaguely between us. We cannot let it interfere with our professional work. He stared at me, long and hard, like he was deciding something monumentally important. Then he said, I don't know yet, but I definitely want to find out. And in that moment, with streetlights glowing around us and the bar sounds fading into the background, I realized I was in serious trouble. Stay completely away from him. Kara's text arrived Tuesday morning while I was getting coffee in the break room. I frowned and typed back, Francis, Dylan's been spreading rumors since Friday night. Says you two are hooking up. Says the promotion was shady as hell. It's getting really messy. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. Of course Dylan couldn't keep his drunk mouth shut. But that line he'd said, I want to find out, kept replaying in my mind like a broken record stuck on repeat. Thursday evening, when the building was nearly empty, I worked late in my new office. A major deadline loomed. Francis's office was just 2 doors down, and I could see his lights still on, glowing in the darkness. Around 9 at night, someone knocked. Francis stood in my doorway, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, looking exhausted but still unfairly attractive. You're still working, he observed. Fair point. He walked in but left the door conspicuously open, a smart move given all the rumors circulating. He glanced at my computer screen. Parker account. Yes. Big presentation tomorrow morning. The numbers need to be absolutely airtight. Francis nodded, then casually leaned against the edge of my desk. I heard about the rumors spreading around the office. I tensed immediately. Yeah. Dylan's a complete jerk. He certainly is, Francis agreed easily. But rumors don't spread this fast unless there's genuine tension underneath. Something people can actually sense in the air. He looked at me directly. Is there tension between us? Loaded question. Dangerous territory. Francis, I started, because I feel it constantly, he continued, his voice dropping lower. Every single time we're in a room together, every meeting, every accidental hallway encounter. He paused meaningfully. Tell me I'm imagining things. I couldn't, because he wasn't imagining anything. I felt it too, like an electric current constantly humming between us. Impossible to ignore. You're not imagining it, I admitted quietly. Francis exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Then we have a serious problem. I know, because I can't. He made a frustrated sound. I can't pursue this. You work directly for me. There are company policies, professional ethics, and with these rumors already spreading everywhere. I understand, I interrupted, standing up from my chair. You're the CEO. You have a reputation to protect. I'm just. Don't, Francis said sharply. Don't finish that sentence. He stepped directly in front of me. You're not just anything, Ryan. That's exactly the problem. If you were, this situation would be easy to handle. We stood incredibly close now. I could smell his cologne. Subtle, expensive, intoxicating. His jaw was tight, like he was physically restraining himself from doing something reckless. What do we do about this? I whispered. Nothing. Francis said, but the word sounded like it caused him physical pain. We do nothing. We maintain professionalism. We let the rumors die naturally. And if they don't die, they will, he said firmly. But his eyes betrayed him because he didn't believe that either. He turned to leave, but I did something stupid, impulsive. I grabbed his wrist. Francis froze completely. One question, I said, barely breathing. If we didn't work together, if there were no policies, no rumors, no complications whatsoever, would you? Yes, Francis said immediately. Zero hesitation. Without any question. Then he gently removed my hand, stepped back and walked away, leaving me standing there with my heart racing and my entire world tilting sideways. The following week, the company announced a mandatory week-long corporate retreat, team-building exercises, strategy sessions, held at a remote mountain resort 2 hours outside the city. Everyone groaned collectively, but attendance wasn't optional, including Francis, including me. On the bus ride there, Kara sat beside me and whispered, "This is either going to fix everything between you two or destroy everything completely." Thanks for the encouraging words, I said dryly. The retreat was absolutely exhausting. Back-to-back workshops, forced bonding activities, trust falls with people you didn't actually trust. But the worst part, seeing Francis constantly at breakfast, during sessions at evening social events, and having to pretend absolutely nothing existed between us. The third night, the company organized a bonfire. Drinks, music, artificial camaraderie. I was seriously considering leaving early when an announcement came. Everyone find a partner. We're doing the trust hike tomorrow morning at dawn. Check the roster for your assigned buddy. Want to guess who my assigned partner was? Francis Hale, of course. The next morning at 6, we were on the trail together, completely alone. Deliberately separated from other groups because the CEO needs a challenging route or whatever excuse the coordinator had provided. Silence at first. Just our shoes crunching on gravel, birds chirping overhead, early sunlight filtering through the trees. Then Francis spoke. You're being unusually quiet. So are you, I pointed out. I'm thinking about something. About what? Francis stopped walking entirely. He turned to face me, his expression deadly serious. About how badly I want to kiss you right this second, my breath caught in my throat. And about how completely unprofessional that desire is, he continued. And about how if anyone saw us, it would confirm every single rumor. And about how I should absolutely definitely not. I kissed him, cut him off mid-sentence, grabbed his jacket, pulled him close and kissed him. Properly, deeply, pouring all the accumulated frustration and tension of the past month into that single moment. Francis made a surprised sound, then immediately responded. His hands tangling in my hair, pulling me closer, kissing me back like he'd been starving for this exact contact. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he leaned his forehead against mine. We can't do this, he whispered. I know, I said. This is a terrible idea. I know. We'll eventually get caught. I know. Francis pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine intensely. And you're still willing to take this risk? I nodded without hesitation. Are you? He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, to hell with it. Yes. And right there on that empty hiking trail, with nothing but trees and sky as witnesses, we made the worst, most reckless, most inevitable decision of our entire lives. Maintaining a secret relationship becomes exponentially harder when your boyfriend happens to be the CEO and everyone already suspects something's going on. We were incredibly careful. No texting during business hours. Only encrypted messaging apps after we'd both left the office. No lingering glances during meetings. No lunches together in the company cafeteria. Every public interaction remained strictly professional. At the office we were boss and employee. Nothing more. But the nights? Those belonged entirely to us. Francis owned a penthouse in the downtown district, high-security building. Private elevator access. Zero nosy neighbors asking uncomfortable questions. I'd arrive around 9 in the evening once the building traffic had settled. Then leave the sunrise. We'd share dinner, binge television shows, talk for hours about absolutely everything except work. He was surprisingly different outside the office. Funny. Sarcastic. Self-deprecating. Completely unlike the intense, commanding CEO version everyone else encountered. You're aware you snore, right? I teased him one night, tucked under his arm on the couch. I absolutely do not snore, Francis protested defensively. You completely do. Like a small hibernating bear. Take that back immediately, he threatened, though he was clearly smiling. Make me, I challenged playfully. He did by kissing me thoroughly until I'd completely forgotten what we'd been discussing in the first place. But reality's weight always lurked somewhere in the background. When we'd pass each other in the office hallways and had to pretend we hadn't spent the previous night tangled together, when colleagues made seemingly harmless comments about Francis showing favoritism to the strategy team, when HR casually mentioned during a department meeting that workplace relationships must be properly disclosed according to company policy, we should tell them, I said one Saturday morning during our third month together. We were in Francis's kitchen. He was attempting to make pancakes while I poured coffee. Domestic. Almost painfully normal. Francis's spatula froze mid-flip. Tell whom exactly? Human resources. The company leadership. Make this relationship official. Brian. I'm exhausted from hiding. I admitted honestly. Sneaking around like we're doing something morally wrong. We're two consenting adults in a relationship, where one person is the chief executive officer and the other is his direct subordinate. Francis finished grimly. The optics are absolutely terrible, so we deal with the consequences, I argued stubbornly. Together. Francis turned off the stove and faced me properly, his expression conflicted. You don't fully understand what you're asking. The board will demand answers. Shareholders will create gossip. Your colleagues will forever question whether your professional achievements are legitimate or simply because of your relationship with me. Well, I do, Francis snapped, then immediately softened his tone. I care because I refuse to let your career suffer damage because of me. You're genuinely talented, Ryan. You've earned every single accomplishment through merit. But once we go public, people will doubt that truth. Forever. That's their problem to deal with, not mine, I said stubbornly. It becomes your problem when future promotions get blocked because everyone assumes you're sleeping your way up the corporate ladder, Francis said harshly. I've witnessed it destroy careers before. I won't let it happen to you. We both stood there in tense silence. The pancakes were getting cold on the counter. So what then? I finally asked. We just hide this forever? No, Francis said, pulling me close against his chest. We hide temporarily, until your career is solid enough that nobody can legitimately question it. Then we go public. On our own terms. I wanted to argue further, but I could see the protective logic behind his plan. 6 months, Francis estimated. Perhaps a year maximum, until you've been promoted to director level, which will happen based purely on merit. Then nobody can say anything meaningful. That's an extremely long time to keep hiding, I said quietly. I know, he whispered, kissing my forehead gently. But you're worth waiting for. Except waiting became significantly more complicated when Dylan randomly appeared at my apartment one Tuesday evening. What the hell are you doing here? I demanded, refusing to let him inside. We need to have a serious conversation, Dylan slurred, clearly intoxicated again. About you and that CEO guy. My blood turned ice cold. There's nothing to discuss. Dylan, leave immediately. Now, does the company know about this? Dylan asked tauntingly. Because I'm thinking the board of directors would be extremely interested. Are you seriously attempting to threaten me? I asked incredulously. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, I said angrily. Then prove I'm wrong, Dylan challenged. Introduce me to him properly. Let me meet this boyfriend. If it's genuine, if it's serious, he won't object, right? I slammed the door directly in his face, but the damage had been done. Dylan knew, or at least strongly suspected, and a drunk Dylan nursing a grudge was genuinely dangerous. I immediately called Francis. We have a serious problem. We met at his penthouse, emergency crisis mode. I explained everything about Dylan, his threats, his suspicions. Francis paced frantically, visibly frustrated. He has zero actual proof. He doesn't need concrete proof, I pointed out. He just needs to plant suspicion, make people look harder at us. And if they investigate thoroughly enough, they'll discover something incriminating, Francis finished grimly. Heavy silence filled the room. Then Francis said, maybe it's time. Time for what exactly? To go public, he said quietly. On our terms before Dylan forces our hand. But your careful plan, my career trajectory. Forget the plan, Francis said firmly. I refuse to let him manipulate us like puppets. I'm not hiding you because some bitter ex-boyfriend thinks he controls the narrative. He came closer, hands on my shoulders. We tell human resources tomorrow morning. File the official disclosure. Make it legitimate. Let people judge however they want. We'll handle it together. Francis, are you absolutely certain? I've never been more certain of anything, he said seriously. Then he smiled slightly. Besides, I'm tired of pretending I don't want to hold your hand in public spaces. I laughed despite the stress. You're such a romantic. Only for you, he whispered and kissed me. Gentle, reassuring. The next morning, we went to HR together, filed the official workplace relationship disclosure forms. The HR director, Linda, middle-aged and supremely professional, barely reacted. You're not the first couple, she said simply. Won't be the last. As long as there's no quid pro quo arrangement and no hostile work environment, The company doesn't interfere with personal lives. She looked at Francis, though I strongly recommend recusal from Ryan's direct performance evaluations. Have another executive handle those to avoid any conflict of interest. Agreed, Francis said immediately. Then we're finished here, Linda said, filing the paperwork efficiently. It's official, and confidential unless you two choose to disclose publicly. We returned to the office with a strange sense of relief. It was done. Official. No more hiding, at least not legally. How do you feel? Francis asked in the empty hallway. Lighter, I admitted, terrified, but lighter. Good, he said. Then casually added, dinner tonight, my place? Can't, I said, smiling. I promised Kara I'd attend her trivia night thing. Francis raised an eyebrow. Plans without me? I promised weeks ago, I explained. Tomorrow instead? Tomorrow, he confirmed. Then impulsively, because we could now, he briefly squeezed my hand. Quick. Hidden. But enough. Francis smiled, genuine, real, and walked away. I didn't know that night, Dylan had one final card to play, and it was going to detonate everything we'd carefully built. Kara's trivia night was surprisingly entertaining until my phone absolutely exploded with notifications. Dozens of them. Messages. Emails. Social media tags. I pulled out my phone confused and saw someone had posted photographs of me and Francis, leaving his building together early one morning. Another of us at a coffee shop across town 3 weeks prior. Another of us sitting in his car, clearly having an intimate conversation, clearly close. Caption: CEO Francis Hale's secret office romance exposed. Favoritism or genuine love? You decide. Corporate scandal. My stomach plummeted. Oh my God, Kara whispered, staring at her own phone. Ray, I have to leave, I said, already standing. Trivia forgotten. I called Francis. Went straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. I drove to his penthouse, adrenaline and panic fueling every mile. The doorman let me up without questions. I'd been there enough times. When I exited the elevator, Francis's door was already open. He stood in the living room, phone in hand, his expression dark as a thunderstorm. You saw, he stated flatly. Everyone saw, I said. Francis. Who did this? Who was following us? 3 guesses, Francis said bitterly. And the first 2 don't count. Dylan. Obviously Dylan. He hired someone, Francis continued. A private investigator. Probably. Got photographs over several weeks. Posted them anonymously, but tagged enough people that it spread like wildfire. Can we get them removed? I asked desperately. Already tried. They're everywhere. Reposted, screenshot, viral. Francis ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. My lawyer's drafting a cease and desist letter, but the damage is done. My phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. Rang again. Ignored. Text from HR: Linda. Need you both in office first thing tomorrow morning. Board has questions. We filed the proper disclosure, I said. We did everything correctly. Doesn't matter, Francis cut in. Optics matter. And right now, optics are disastrous. CEO sleeping with subordinate. Even if legal, even if disclosed, it looks terrible. The board despises bad publicity. So what do they want? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Damage control, Francis said quietly. Which means either I step down as CEO, or I leave the company. I finished. Francis immediately protested. Absolutely not. It's the logical choice, I said rationally, though internally I was shattering. You're the CEO. The company needs you. I'm replaceable. You're not replaceable, Francis said fiercely, grabbing my arms. Not to the company. Not to me. Francis, listen carefully, he commanded. We're attending that meeting tomorrow. Together. We're facing the board. Together. And we're going to make them understand that our relationship doesn't compromise our professional work. That we followed every rule. That we have nothing to apologize for. And if they don't agree, I whispered, then we both walk away, Francis said firmly. You can't. You built this company, and I'd burn it to the ground before I let them make you a scapegoat, Francis interrupted. He cupped my face. Intense eye contact. You and me, Ryan. That's what actually matters. Not the job. not the board. My eyes stung with tears. When did you become so dramatic? Francis smiled slightly. Since I fell for a guy who kissed me at a party to make his ex jealous. You fell for me? I asked quietly. Obviously, Francis said like it was the most natural thing. Did you think this was casual? Sneaking around, filing paperwork, risking my entire career. I don't do that for casual relationships, Ryan. My voice cracked. I fell for you too. Somewhere between the hiking trail and those terrible pancakes. They were burnt, not terrible, Francis corrected. There's a difference. They were perfect, I said, and kissed him. Desperate, scared, loving. The next morning we suited up, literally and figuratively. Professional clothes, professional demeanor, united front. Board meeting scheduled for 10 sharp. The conference room held 7 board members. Older, mostly men, conservative, judgmental. Linda from HR was there too, maintaining a neutral expression. Francis and I sat side by side. Let's address the issue directly, Chairman Miller started. These photographs, this relationship, it's a public relations nightmare. We filed proper disclosure, Francis replied calmly. Followed every company policy. Policy doesn't prevent public perception. Another board member, Janet, interrupted. Our shareholders are concerned. Clients are questioning our professionalism. Because of a relationship? I couldn't stop myself. 2 consenting adults in a documented, disclosed relationship? That's the scandal? Mr. Hayes, Miller warned. This doesn't concern you. It absolutely concerns me, I said firmly. Francis's reassuring hand on my thigh. My work speaks for itself. Check my performance reviews, all conducted by executives other than Francis per HR recommendation. Check my project results. My team feedback. I earned my position through merit alone. We're not questioning your competence, Janet started. Yes, you are, I interrupted. By suggesting this relationship somehow invalidates my career. By making this about optics instead of facts. Silence filled the room. Then Francis spoke. I'll make this simple. Ryan and I are together. That's not changing. If the board has a problem with that reality, I'll resign. Effective immediately. Audible gasps. Even Linda looked surprised. Francis, don't be rash. Miller started. It's not rash, Francis said evenly. It's a choice. I won't lead a company that punishes people for their personal lives when they've followed every rule. I won't work somewhere that prioritizes gossip over results. He stood. So decide now. You want me to stay? Then this ends here. No forced separations. No scapegoats. We move forward professionally. Another board member, Richard, older conservative, spoke up. And if we refuse, then you find a new CEO, Francis said simply. And good luck explaining to shareholders why you fired the person who doubled revenue in 2 years because you didn't approve of who he's dating. Power move. Risky as hell, but effective. Miller looked around at other board members. Silent communication. Finally he sighed. Fine. The relationship stays. But we're issuing a joint statement, clarifying the disclosure, emphasizing company policy, compliance, shutting down speculation. Acceptable. Francis agreed. And Mr. Hayes, Miller added, looking at me. Your next performance review better be absolutely spotless. It will be, I said confidently. Meeting adjourned. When we exited the conference room, I released a breath I'd been holding. That was terrifying, Francis finished. But we survived it. You threatened to quit, I said incredulously. For me, I meant every word, he said seriously. Then smirked. Though I'm glad I didn't have to. I really like my corner office. I laughed, relief flooding through. So what now? Now, Francis said, glancing around the empty hallway, we return to work, professionally, publicly. No more hiding. And after work? I asked. Francis smiled. After work, you're mine. Officially? 2 weeks later, the company released an official statement. Relationship acknowledged. Policies confirmed. Media moved on to the next scandal. Dylan tried reaching out, fake apology, claiming he didn't mean for it to explode like that. I blocked him. Permanently. Some people don't deserve second chances. At the office, there was initial awkwardness. Stares. Whispers. But gradually people moved on. My work continued proving itself. Francis remained professional in public, affectionate in private. One Saturday, 3 months after the scandal, we were at his place. Lazy morning, coffee and breakfast. "I have something to tell you," Francis said suddenly. "Ominous beginning," I joked. "The board offered me a position at our parent company," he explained. "Bigger role, more responsibility, but it requires relocating to Seattle." My stomach dropped. "Oh," and Francis continued, watching my reaction carefully. "I'd need a senior strategist to join me. Build the new team. Someone I trust completely." My eyes widened. "You're asking me to move to Seattle, new position, significant salary increase, completely merit-based. I had 3 board members review your portfolio independently." Francis leaned forward. "But I'm also asking as your boyfriend. Come with me. Start this next chapter, together." "That's a massive decision," I said slowly. "I know," Francis acknowledged. "Take time. Think about it. No pressure." "Yes," I interrupted. "Yes?" Francis repeated, surprised. "Yes," I confirmed, smiling. "Seattle. New job. With you. Yes to everything." Francis grinned wide, genuine, happy, and pulled me into a kiss. "You're certain?" "I'm certain," I said. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't burn the pancakes in our new place." "Our new place?" Francis caught that. "Well, obviously," I said casually, "if I'm moving to Seattle, I'm not getting a separate apartment. That's just wasteful. So we're moving in together," Francis confirmed, looking way too pleased. "Apparently," I said. "Is that acceptable?" "Acceptable?" Francis laughed. "Ray and I've been planning our kitchen layout since you said yes." "You're ridiculous," I said, but I was smiling. "You love it," he shot back. "I love you," I corrected. Francis went still. "Say that again." "I love you," I repeated, meaning every syllable. "I love you too," Francis whispered, and kissed me slow, deep, promising. And right there in his kitchen, morning sun streaming through windows, coffee getting cold, I realized that impulsive kiss at Kara's party? Best decision I ever made. Seattle was everything and nothing like I expected simultaneously. Rain. Constant rain. Coffee culture even more intense than back home. Tech boom, energy pulsing through every street. And Francis and my shared apartment. Modern floor-to-ceiling windows with Space Needle views. Grown-up furniture we'd actually selected together. I still maintain the blue couch was superior. I commented one Saturday, unpacking boxes. Blue was too aggressive, Francis argued, arranging books on shelves. Gray is sophisticated. Gray is boring. "You're sleeping on the gray couch tonight," Francis threatened. But he was smiling. "You'd miss me in 5 minutes," I said confidently. 3 minutes, he corrected. "But don't get cocky about it." Work was challenging but exhilarating. New team, bigger projects, actual authority. Francis delivered on his promise. My role was entirely merit-based. Board members regularly praised my strategies, even the previously skeptical ones. Slowly, I proved that relationships and competence can coexist successfully. But adjustment wasn't easy. New city meant no Kara, no familiar faces. Some nights I felt homesick. Francis noticed. "Obviously, we can visit any time," he offered one evening while we were on the couch, my head on his chest. "Or fly Kara out here. Whatever you need." "I'm okay," I assured him, "just adjusting." "Take your time," Francis said, fingers running through my hair. "Home is wherever we are together, right?" Cheesy, but true. 3 months into Seattle, I received a call from an unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. "Rayan?" Familiar voice. "Dylan, how did you get this number?" I demanded coldly. "Called your old office, did some digging," Dylan said casually. "Look, I know you hate me." Accurate assessment. But I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. What I did, the photographs, the whole mess, it was awful. I was jealous and drunk and stupid. "And?" I prompted, waiting for the inevitable catch. "And there's no catch," Dylan said surprisingly. "I'm in therapy now, working on my issues. Part of recovery is making amends. So I'm sorry. You deserved better. From me, That entire situation. I was quiet for a moment. This felt genuine. Why now? Because I finally realized I was the problem. Not you, Dylan admitted. You moved on. Built something real. And I was stuck trying to destroy it because I couldn't handle that you were happy without me. You caused significant damage, Dylan. I said seriously. I know, he replied quietly. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. Good, I finally said. I hope you succeed. But I'm not interested in rebuilding a friendship. That bridge is completely burnt. I understand, Dylan accepted. Take care of yourself, Ryan. The call disconnected. I sat there processing everything. Who was that? Francis asked, coming out of the bedroom. Dylan, I told him. Apologizing. Francis raised an eyebrow. And nothing. I said. Apology acknowledged. Moving forward. You're really okay? Francis pressed, sitting beside me. Yeah, I said honestly. His drama doesn't get to live rent-free in my head anymore. I have better things to focus on. Like, Francis asked, pulling me closer. Like you, I said. Like us. Like this life we built. Sentimental, Francis teased. You started it, I shot back. 6 months later, the company threw a gala, annual celebration, black tie, fancy venue. Francis and I attended together. Obviously. No more hiding. No more whispers. Just us. Publicly. Proudly. Remember the last gala? I said quietly while we swayed on the dance floor to slow music. The one where I almost confessed feelings and got interrupted? Francis recalled. Hard to forget. You were so frustrated. I teased. I was terrified, Francis admitted. Terrified you'd reject me. Terrified I'd ruin everything. Best risk you ever took? I asked, looking up at him. Best risk we both took, Francis corrected. He suddenly stopped dancing. Middle of the floor. People around us. Music playing. Ray, what are you doing? I asked nervously. Something I should have done months ago, Francis said. And then, in front of everyone, colleagues, board members, strangers, he got down on one knee. My breath completely stopped. Rayan Hayes, Francis started, pulling out a simple silver ring. You drove me crazy from the moment you kissed me at that party. You challenged me, surprised me, made me want to be better. You took a massive risk moving here with me, building this life, and I don't want to spend another day without making this permanent. I was barely breathing. People around us stopped, watching, phones recording. So, Francis continued, voice steady despite the very public setting. Will you marry me? Time froze. Every moment flashed through my mind, that first impulsive kiss, the office tension, the secret dates, the fight with the board, moving to Seattle, building this life together. You're proposing at a work event, I pointed out, voice shaky. I'm proposing where we first almost confessed feelings. Francis corrected. Full circle. You're so dramatic, I said, tears in my eyes. Is that a yes? Francis asked nervously. Yes, I whispered. Then louder. Yes. Francis stood, slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me deep, passionate, perfect. Around us applause erupted, cheering. Even some board members were smiling. When we broke apart, foreheads touching, Francis whispered, no more secrets, no more hiding, just us. Just us? I agreed. Later that night, at home, the ring on my finger feeling surreal, I asked, did you plan that, the public proposal? Partially, Francis admitted, pulling me into bed. I bought the ring weeks ago, but the moment felt right. Forget privacy, I wanted everyone to know you're mine. Possessive, I teased. Always, Francis said unapologetically. Problem? No problem, I said, kissing him. I'm pretty possessive too. Good, he murmured against my lips. Because you're stuck with me now. Best mistake I ever made, I said. What mistake? Francis asked, pulling back slightly. Kissing a stranger at a party to make my ex jealous, I explained, smiling. Terrible plan. Worst execution. Best outcome. Francis laughed, real, genuine, happy. Here's to terrible plans. And unexpected CEOs. I added, and moving to Seattle. And burning pancakes. I've improved at pancakes, Francis defended. You really haven't, I said honestly. Rude, Francis said. But he was smiling. You're marrying me anyway. I am, I confirmed, looking at the ring, at him, at our life. Happily. And as we fell asleep that night, tangled together in our Seattle apartment, rain pattering against windows, future uncertain but together, I realized that sometimes the best love stories start with the worst decisions. And I wouldn't change a single moment.